You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy, I'm Paul Stone talking college football. It's championship week this week in college football. And, Paul, let's get right to it and start on Friday. The G5 group we'll start off with. Later in the week, we'll do the Power Four championship games. Let's start in Conference USA and go to Jacksonville, Alabama. Jacksonville State 5 and 57.5 over Western Kentucky. This is a rematch of a game played last week in Bowling Green, Kentucky, at Western Kentucky. Hilltoppers win it 19-17. The big storyline in this one was Rich Rod's crew really didn't need this one. They were in this game regardless. And during the game, about the third quarter, starting quarterback Tyler Huff goes down with an injury. And he's the guy that really runs that option offense, 1,176 yards rushing for the season. I mean, that leads the Jacksonville State top 5 rushing game in all of college football at 257 a game. Now Jacksonville State here on the road, 5 and 57.5 without their starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned last week's game. Lucas Canero kicks a 50-yard field goal in the game's waning seconds. Western Kentucky defeats Jacksonville State 19-17. That actually got Western Kentucky in this Conference USA championship game. Now the game switches locations, will be played at Amherst Stadium in Jacksonville, Alabama. As you mentioned, Jacksonville State 5, a total of 57.5. The Gamecocks 5-1 on the year against or straight up rather, on their home field. And they've won 5 straight in the friendly confines since losing their season opener at home to Coastal Carolina, 55-27. And as you mentioned, the big story here is going to be the availability of quarterback Tyler Huff for Jacksonville State. Left the game midway through the third quarter this past week against Western Kentucky with an apparent leg injury. Huff, who transferred from Furman in the offseason, is just a huge part of Jacksonville State's offense. He's a big-time runner, 1,176 yards, as you mentioned, 6.1 yards per carry. Also has passed for 2,003 yards, so a real dual-threat guy, one of the better dual-threat quarterbacks in terms of production in all of college football this season. If he cannot go, their backup for Jacksonville State, Logan Smothers, he has split time between Nebraska and the last 2 seasons at Jacksonville State, and Smothers has played some college football. He has 187 career passes. He's rushed for 648 yards across 4 seasons. So he's played some, but it will still be a drop-off. I'm not sure that the total accurately reflects the possible non-availability of Huff, or at least him being limited at 57.5. I'm going to take this game to go under based largely on that component of the handicap. So give me under 57.5, Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State.
I was all prepared to take Jacksonville State in this rematch at home, flipping locations. But man, the lack of availability, or the questionable availability for Huff, and everything runs through him, and whether he's rushing it himself, but the execution of that option as well. I mean, it's almost like when Rich Rod had Pat White at West Virginia when he went down with that injury as 28-point favorites against Pitt, where they were knocked out the 2007 national championship game. So it's kind of a stay-away spot for me. But, yeah, makes a lot of sense on the under 57.5. I don't think that that line is affected at all in this one. And one thing, no matter how much Jacksonville State showed, they ran their offense. Obviously, the quarterback got hurt. They did see this option-based offense just one game ago. So they'll be a little bit more prepared this week against him. Earn a chance at $10,000 in bonus credits with Bet Rivers Prop Packs. Place NBA same-game parlays to collect player card prop packs and earn your rewards. You win based on how your player performs. You can log into the betrivers.com or the Bet Rivers app to place your bet and get your pack. Let's move on. On Friday night, another one in the Mountain West Conference. A home location. This will be on the Smurf turf in Boise, Idaho. Boise State 4 and 58.5 over UNLV. Boise State was a 4-point favorite earlier this season when they played in Las Vegas. A 29-24 winner. They covered. They ran it out with Genty just running it out that clock. That Genty didn't bust any big ones. They kept him in check, but he was certainly effective, as this was a grinded out more of a game. Not a whole lot of punts in this one, but a long, sustained drives for both teams. UNLV tried to rally to get back into the game, but they could not get the ball back once they cut it to 29-24. UNLV has kept on winning. They did lose to Syracuse, but that's it. And won some impressive games, came from behind, and really shut down San Jose State in the rain a couple of weekends ago. San Jose State scored on one drive and did nothing the rest of the way. We know Boise State covered that San Jose State game with a pick six very late in the game. Besides that, Boise, since that Friday night blowout against San Diego State where they were up like 42-0, they have really they've won, they've taken care of business, but not blowing out teams the way they were earlier in the season. That was kind of the breakoff spot. But they are at home, and this is why I like them. So switch the locations. I think they'll be keyed up for this one. I think they know what's ahead of them. They've always missed out on that 2-team or that 4-team playoff, but now they have a chance to get in. They control their own destiny to get in to this 12-team playoff. I'm on Boise State at home to raise their level of play of what we've seen of their recent form and take care of business against UNLV, who is a tough out.
Yeah, Jimmy, to me, of course, there's a lot of intriguing games this weekend during conference championship week. But, if you want to underscore kind of how wild and wacky the 2024 college football season has been, just consider UNLV's season. They're one victory away from being included in the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. And this is the same UNLV team that went 29-74 in Mountain West play, not exactly a tough conference, in the 9 seasons prior to Barry Odom's arrival. So 29-74 in conference play before Odom arrived, and now they're on the doorstep of the national playoff. Just an incredible story. You mentioned the previous meeting between the teams, Boise winning in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, 29-24 as a 4-point road favorite in that game. Ashton Gente, held in check, as you also mentioned, by UNLV, only 128 yards on 33 carries, so only 3.9 yards per carry. The Rebels, not known for great defense, more of an offensive team, probably did as good of a job as anybody in keeping Gente somewhat limited, although they have feasted on, lower division Mountain West teams over the last month. One could argue that UNLV's, had a better November than Boise, and you kind of alluded to that. Boise has a close victory at home over Nevada, 28-21 on November 9th, favored by 23.5 in that game. Then as a road favorite at Wyoming of 22.5 on November 23rd, only defeat Wyoming 17-13. But I'm kind of like you. I'm probably not going to play this game. But when you have Boise favored by 4 on the road, and now basically a month later, they're favored by 4 at home, I think that might be a little bit too much of an overcorrection. You're almost essentially saying these teams are equal on a neutral field, and I think you've got to give the edge to Boise. They've been in these kind of games, and they've got the wild card in Ashton Gente, so I won't be involved, but I can see your position here on the Broncos.
All right, don't forget at BetRivers also players can play same-game parlays on college football and NFL games to earn squares. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boost, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Visit BetRivers.com with the BetRivers app for more details. All right, this is the one. So we got 4 G5 games that are on college campuses, and then the MAC game is at Detroit. All of the home teams are favored, minus this one. In the American Conference Championship, Tulane travels to West Point to take on Army. By the way, one of the most awesome settings for a college football game. It is absolutely beautiful. But Tulane, 5.5, 46 at Army. Wave. Boy, laid an egg, laid a turkey. Thanksgiving night. My goodness, it was sloppy, and the next thing you know, Memphis came to play. Memphis was a capable team. Back in the summer, we were talking about real contender. Maybe that Florida State, that trip to Tallahassee away from an undefeated season. That got wrecked the next week in Annapolis against Navy, and we know how good Navy was this year. But still, Memphis took care of business, 34-24. I think Tulane will get back their focus in this game this week and get back to doing what they're doing. But, man, at West Point throws me off on this one, Paul. So they Bryson Daly got injured since he's come back. Man, you talk about a workhorse. The last 3 games, he has 102 carries for 439 yards and 6 TDs. 102 rushes, man. Do the math. That's 34 a game. So, man, he's really bullying. He's a tough guy. I know you watched him play high school ball in the state of Texas. So, Tulane here, it's kind of a stay-away spot. I was ready to take the wave into Crescent City, but not on the road here. I do think they're going to have much more of a focused effort than they were. A little sloppy early. Once they were in a game, they had dug themselves too big of a hole. And Army, have they recaptured that farm for when before Daly went down? Tulane 5.5, 46 here, Paul.
Yeah, Army strength of schedule, we've talked about it pretty much all season long. 125th currently, according to Jeff Sagrin. And they've only played one team inside Sagrin's current top 75, that being Notre Dame a few weeks ago. And obviously in its opportunity to quieten the naysayers there at Yankee Stadium, they lose big 49-14 to the Irish, completely outclassed on the field, to be blunt about it, never in the game. And last week, the Cadets, they trailed Texas San Antonio there at West Point by a single point, 17-16, entering the fourth quarter. They rally for a 29-24 victory, over the Roadrunners there. Prior to Thanksgiving night, I think Tulane, obviously, they were riding an 8-game win streak, first of all. They appeared to be making an argument to at least have a case to be the group of fives representative in the playoff. I know all early returns were kind of pointing to Boise State, obviously, but certainly Tulane was in the mix, and they considered themselves to be in the mix. And then they just playing at home Thanksgiving night, as you've already referenced. They no show in that game. Basically, they lose to Memphis 34-24, and now all hopes of the college football playoff out the window. This is a situational handicap for me. I know Tulane's the stronger team. They're the more athletic team. And also John Sumrall's teams have done well defending option offenses. At Troy, he faced these two teams, Army and Navy, a couple of times. And then earlier this season against Navy as the head coach of Tulane. And I think those teams have scored maybe in 3 games or 4 games, scored like a total of 9 points. So his teams have done really well defending these option type offenses. But the temperature going to be freezing or below the whole game. Tulane, I think, has maybe lost a little bit of its edge, a little bit of its focus. You got to be assignment driven. You've really got to be focused, I think, to defend this attack. I think Army's going to have all hands on deck. I'm taking the Cadets plus 5.5 at home over Tulane.
All right, Cadets at home in West Point. Let's go to the neutral site game, the MAC. This is on Saturday in Detroit, Miami, Ohio, the defending champions. And there were big dogs in this game last year, 6.5-point dogs. They win it outright 23-14 over Toledo. Toledo was one of our popular fades in midweek action this week. Not quite the team that they've had as over the previous years. Miami 2.5, 45 over Ohio. Boy, when you watch Ohio, and this is what they did with Rourke as well, who's now at Indiana, man. They like to use the legs of their quarterback and like to use the toughness. Parker Navarro. I mean, a key game when they were trailing 7-0 late. They go on to score 24 unanswered points to win it in the course of in a big game. And it was every time they got down in a 4th down situation, it seemed like he was keeping that ball. He was pulling it out the dive guy's belly, and he was running it himself. And just a tough, hard-nosed kid at quarterback. So should be a tight one, probably low scoring as well, as both of these teams sort of methodic offensively. Miami 2.5, 45 in Detroit.
This game, Jimmy, is going to be a rematch of the team's midseason meeting in Oxford, which saw homestanding Miami of Ohio. They led 16-0 at the half, led 30-6 after 3 quarters. Ohio scores 2 late touchdowns to make the final a more respectable 30-20. Both of Friday's combatants in this game, predictably on pretty good heater in both cases. Ohio, they've won 7 of their last 8 games with their lone defeat during that 8-game stretch being the aforementioned game at Miami, Ohio. Miami, meanwhile, they've reeled off 7 straight victories. That's after starting the season 1-4 against a challenging non-conference schedule. They actually opened the season with 3 Power 4 opponents, losing all those games to Northwestern, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame. But I think that got them ready for moments like this. Miami has flexed its muscle in MAC action this season. Again, they've won the 7 straight games. That comes after losing their conference opener at Toledo 30-20. And all but one of the Red Hawks' victories during this 7-game streak by double digits. Only one was by less than double digits. Those 7 victories by an average of 19 points a game. So they've been really dominant during this current win streak. And I think perhaps 2 of their better performances of the season for Miami of Ohio came actually in their last 2 games against 2 of the league's better teams, beat both of those teams by double digits. First, they defeated Northern Illinois at home 20-9. And then this past Friday, won at Bowling Green 28-12. We remember earlier in the season, Bowling Green, very competitive at both Penn State and Texas A&M against Northern Illinois and Bowling Green, those 2 quality teams. The Red Hawks never trailed in either game. I like Miami as well because of their veteran quarterback, Brett Gabbert, a younger brother of former NFL quarterback Blaine Gabbert. Brett Gabbert's played a lot of football. This is his 6th season of college football. If my math is correct, this weekend will be his 50th career start. So give me the hot team playing a veteran, talented 24-year-old quarterback who is the defending champion. I'll take Miami, Ohio, minus 2.5 over the Bobcats.
All right. Yes, indeed. So I like Miami, Ohio in that game as well. You're right. 30-6 entering the fourth quarter. Play 2 garbage time touchdowns to make the final score more respectable, 30-20. But yeah, both teams on a roll. Ohio, since they lost the game to Miami, Ohio, 5 straight, and Miami, 7 straight. Let's go to the final one of the group of 5, and let's look at the Sun Belt, Paul, where the ULL Ragin' Cajuns 10-2 on the year, 6-56.5 over Marshall, 9-3. Both teams winning their respective divisions with records at 7-1. And ULL, their only loss in conference play was to South Alabama by 2 points. The other loss was a very competitive game at Tulane. So could not get the ball back with 1 score, though. They just could not stop the Wave in the Wave's rushing game. So a little bit had problems with their offensive line strength in that one. But 10-2 is a step up from the 6-6 years they've had under Coach DeSormo, who took over for Billy Napier 3 years ago. So he was getting a little pressure, but now he's is safe in safer ground. But at home in Lafayette, Cajuns 56.5 over the Thunder and Herd.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those games, Jimmy, that you look at, in my case anyway, and it's kind of a head scratcher. You really just can't get a feel for who you like. You mentioned both these teams finished with 7-1 records. Marshall wins the Eastern Division of the conference. Louisiana wins the Western Division. Louisiana, interestingly, they get the opportunity to host this game there in Lafayette based on a composite average of selected computer rankings. So that's why this game is being played there on the Ragin' Cajuns home field. And for purposes of comparison, I use my own power ratings and reference 2 other people who put out power ratings, and we both have Louisiana slightly higher than Marshall as well. So I think they deserve to be the host here. The marketplace, the betting marketplace, concurs with the conference's decision here. Ben Wooldridge, their starting quarterback, who took over when Chandler Fields was injured. Wooldridge was lost for the season early in the second half of that loss to South Alabama that you referenced. Chandler Fields, though, I don't think there's a whole lot, if any, drop off. These guys have both played a lot of football. Fields is a 6-year guy. He's got 426 career pass attempts, so he's not going to be feeling the jitters out there playing against Marshall this weekend. teams didn't meet in the regular season. This line of 6, if it gets a little bit higher, I might consider taking the Thundering Herd of Marshall. But right now, it's a clear pass for me, no play.
All right, Thunder and Hertz, who lost again at Virginia Tech by 17 earlier this year. And, of course, at Ohio State, that's when my coach was giving them biscuit trades if they wanted to transfer from all the biscuits they could eat over at Marshall. So, all right, so there's your group of 5. Later in the week, we'll be talking about the Power 4 conference championships when we come back. All right, this is for Paul Stone. I'm Jimmy Ott, the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.